Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as ordered. And just in case y'all don't know who we are, on the other side of me, New Jerusalem's own, VA Bread, Even Kill,
always
Rational.
Absolutely.
Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Fact fight, baby. Let's go.
He is Mr. Logical. And I am the one and only Be More Zone.
Maryland, we in the building.
2-5. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about some coaching news around the NFL. We got picks, baby. It's Thursday night. AFC title game in Baltimore, NFC title game in Santa Clara. So join us. Biggest movement since Dipset. Sports Reports is ordered. We usually kick off the show with a little something called Get It Off My Chest, and it starts right about now. So throughout life, we all go through the same struggle. Who am I? What am I? Where am I going? So as I watch sports, I see these teams that have identity problems. The Buffalo Bills, are they a contender? Are they elite? Or are they just a team with an overrated quarterback? We'll see. But I want to talk about the association. There's a team that goes by the name of the Milwaukee Bucks. And if you didn't know any better, you would think they were a contender. They got this guy that they call the Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, or as I like to call him now, GM Tecumpo, Giannis. Because this offseason, there was a coach in Toronto, assistant coach by the name of Adrian Griffin, and Giannis said, I want him. So the Bucks brought him in, but this is the problem. It's 2024 now. The Bucks won a title back in, 2021?
Yeah, so that seems like a long time ago in our current standard, but yeah.
Yeah, 3 years ago, Giannis was the finals MVP. Remember, he dropped 50 in the finals clinching game.
18 free throws.
So from the 2-5 perspective, if you want to win titles, you got to go get somebody that's been there before. LeBron tried that with David Blatt. You can't just get these coaches off the street and think that you're going to win a title. So everybody in America knew that Milwaukee was not going to win the title this year with a dude named Adrian Griffin as their head coach, right? Everybody knew that. So now the season starts and we have these incidents. We got Giannis while they're talking to players and coaches, Giannis in the background drawing up plays, trying to figure out what his coach called because he don't know what it was. We got Giannis sitting at the scorer's table. The coach said, come out the game, get over here. And Giannis just stays at the table after the game. The coach is like, I wanted to take him out the game to get a quick breath. I told him to stay. You ain't tell him to stay at the scorer's table. He just blocked you out. We had Bobby Portis, the dude that punched his teammate in the face and broke his face. Remember that? Over in Chicago? Broke somebody's face.
Sometimes you got to be intense, dog.
He was sitting in the press conference talking about, yo, we need leadership. I'm tired of looking for leadership. All while undermining their head coach. So once the new year hit, everybody said, yo, Adrian Griffin's on the hot seat. And these rumors were going around. Yesterday, they fired him. Now, the question that I ask, who are you, Milwaukee? Who did you think you were? Because if you thought that you were a championship contender, you would not hire this nondescript in the first place. So then, not only do they trade Captain Drew Holiday, the perimeter defensive god that they had.
True.
And now they're sitting up here talking about our defense is bad. But the problem is, you know what the problem is? The problem is they're fourth in three-point percentage defense. They're 25th in the paint. That ain't got nothing to do with Damian Lillard, whose shooting percentages is down 7% from 2 this year. I don't know if that's coaching. What I do know is that that's an old dude that's about to be on the hook for a lot of money.
Like $60 million.
That you're probably going to be stuck with, and then you go get Doc Rivers, who won a championship, let's say 16 years ago. That people
Most
still
celebrated championship ever, though.
still celebrate it like it happened yesterday. And here he is. He was a consultant with the team, and now he creeps right on in. And I'm supposed to trust the guy that couldn't get Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey with a little bit of Tobias Harris past the second round. I'm supposed to trust this guy that started the NBA season 0-19 with Tracy McGrady. I was supposed to trust this guy that didn't win another title after that title in 2008.
The Boston Three Party.
To somehow come to Milwaukee and be the answer. The only answer I know is Allen Iverson.
Shut up, VA.
So let me tell you a little something about the Milwaukee Bucks. You fucked up now. So, Mr. Logical, there's some coaching news.
Little bit.
I heard that the Atlanta Falcons have a new coach.
They made a move.
And I heard that you were livid.
All right, livid is a stretch. That's a stretch. I'm more concerned with this team just kind of operating on the status quo. Raheem Morris was an NFC South head coach with the Buccaneers. He was an assistant in different capacities and then interim coach with the Atlanta Falcons a few years back. So you already kind of have a resume on him. You already know. I'm not saying he can't improve, but you already know as of right now, I think his record is something like 21-38 as a head coach. That stretch from 2015 to 2020, we mixed in the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl run. The defense was playing great. But that's where the points, the leads, and the collapses were happening. And as we watched years pass by, I remember I'm always somewhere in public. I was at a bar for brunch on Sunday watching them when they told Todd Gurley not to score, and he scored, and Matt Stafford came back down against Detroit and scored and won the game. Touchdown pass TJ Hockenson. I watched them not fall on an onside kick against Dallas and blow like a 15-point lead in the last couple of minutes. I watched them blow leads to the Bears. And it just was happening so often to where the second half inability to adjust to games was happening week to week to week. He was on those staffs. You fired the head coach, put him in place, and then allowed him to go advance his career as defense coordinator of the Rams. And yes, he probably did a remarkable job there, but you've already been down that path. And I'm not saying he's not a good coach. I'm not saying he's not a good person. But think about like an ex you had. You picked him. You dated for a while. You broke up. You split. You improve yourself. They improve themselves. And you kind of like have a conversation. It seems like, okay, this might work. But when you think about it, like the core reasons that you guys split the first time is still the same thing. So now everything's going to be viewed through that lens. Any kind of argument is going to be viewed through like, well, we had the same argument 4 years ago, and look how that turned out. So are you going to really work on it? Are you going to give Raheem, are you going to give him a full season? They start out 2-7. They go into the bye. Is he going to be the coach after the bye? Because you already know what you're getting because you already have his record at 21-38. And everyone was talking about the Bill Belichick. We talked about the rumors and all of that. I was like, I'd rather you either get a full-on established winning coach or just start over anew with some of these other coaches that these other teams got. Because at least you can marry that up with the new quarterback and be like, okay, this is their growth together. I got another guy that got 60 games under his belt. I can't be like, oh, he's growing. Like, you already got 60 games under your belt. Like, you should be in a better position. You should be starting now 7-2 next year with the amount of experience you have as a head coach and as an assistant over these last 10 years.
Yo, you know the best thing about the Falcons hiring Raheem Morris? the fact that the Rams get 2 draft picks for having a minority on their staff that got
They
hired
got
by
a
another
job.
team. Yeah. You know, so
So
that's
you
the
made
best
it,
thing
and you
about
made
that.
another NFC team better.
Yeah, they did that too. So, Raheem Morris, some
Excuse me.
people feel as if he got an unfair deal in Atlanta because, as you mentioned, he was the interim coach. They started 0-5. Dan Quinn got fired. He came in, won 4 games. And the only thing I'll say about that is Coach Prime won 4 games and people were ready to build a statue. Now, with that being said, I don't like the hire, because when I think of Raheem Morris, I think of double up. What do I mean by double up? When it's 3rd and 6, he got the corners 12 yards away. When it's 3rd and 3, he got the corner 6 yards away. This is what he does. I hope that he learned some lessons. That's all you can hope for, is that he learned some lessons throughout his previous coaching tenure. He had a 10-6 year in Tampa, accompanied by some 3-13 and 4-12, obviously, because he's
Correct.
21-38.
Yeah, the record,
So
the record bounced out.
yeah, the record balanced out. So, as I look at it, I told you this, like 2-3 weeks ago? We were in the group talking about, why are the Falcons or all these teams announcing who they're interviewing? And you said something along the lines of like trying to
They're gonna
provide hope for the fans.
hope for the fans because I knew without a doubt. Like, listen, people kind of get mad at me when I act like this kind of prognosticator that knows everything. But I mean, sometimes I just do. I knew they were going to post all these interviews so all the fans would get excited about Harbaugh, Belichick, Vrabel. And I'm going to give credit to Colin Cowherd because he said this. I was thinking it, but he said it out loud. He was like, those guys weren't, Atlanta was not interviewing Jim Harbaugh. They were not interviewing Bill Belichick. They were not interviewing Mike Vrabel. Those guys were interviewing the Falcons saying, why should I come here? And they put on their PowerPoint slides and all the numbers and the cap and everything else. They tried to sell the team to these coaches. It wasn't the other way around.
Right.
So, like I said, I'm like, we're going to post all these interviews and end up hiring like some special teams coordinator from Seattle or somewhere that had a good punting, season. Because that was going to happen because that's what the Falcons do. They don't make decisions that they don't throw caution to the wind, even when it's like time for it. Les Snead with the Rams after they won a Super Bowl. Granted, he said this after they hoisted the trophy. F them picks. But he had to make that decision prior to. Granted, he had Aaron Donald and he lucked up with the Stafford, Jared Goff, whatever situation that caused that to make that trade viable. But that in and of itself is the difference between Atlanta and these other teams. And we're going to talk about Carolina. We're going to talk about these other teams,
We're
but
gonna talk about everybody,
we're going to
so
talk
since
about
you brought
everybody.
it
But
up,
but like I said, it goes back to Atlanta taking Bijan Robinson number 8 overall. I'm not saying he's not a talented player, but you needed to bolster the defense, which you did in free agency. They brought in a lot of defensive players free agency. So go heavy the defense, build that up. That way, the Joe Flacco Baltimore Ravens, kind of philosophy they had. They didn't put a lot of offensive talent around Joe Flacco. They just kept getting him the ball at the 48 with interceptions and fumbles. So he only had to go 20, 30 yards or 15, 20 yards to get in the field goal range. So Baltimore could win a lot of games 20-14 or 20-13 because they were getting takeaways, they were getting punts, they were just doing other things because they had a stacked defense. Atlanta had that opportunity and they decided, you know what? They decided to they don't give us right. So we have a lot of people chiming in. Appreciate that. But like I said, I don't think he's a bad coach. I just don't know that he's gonna get the time he needs to build on a team that needs some structure, needs some architectural work, needs some ground, some foundational work.
right.
if it doesn't start off great, it's going to be like, man, did we make a mistake? Instead of just starting out fresh, they were like, did we make a mistake bringing this guy back?
Well, that's
Did
why
I
I
make a
like
mistake getting back with my ex type thing?
Yeah, that's why I like your ex analogy, because I would like to think that if I blew a Super Bowl 28-3, I don't want any remnants of that around me.
I'm not trying to wear that shirt no more. I'm not trying to go back there to the same office.
Yeah, like it was my lucky shirt at one time until it got a hole in it.
Same
now
owner,
I
same
can't wear it
building.
anymore.
It's no new, nothing's new. Like you're literally running it back to a bad time.
But you brought up Jim Harbaugh as well. And, we had that conversation. I've been a proponent of Jim Harbaugh's going to go to the Chargers because they have the quarterback. They have talent galore. They're probably going to have to lose some of it, just because of cap space and all that kind of stuff.
They have the fourth worst cap space.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that kind of like masks some of these decisions is like, it looks great because you have Justin Herbert. That's why this narrative that is quarterback driven league is going to cause Harbaugh a little bit of pain. I don't think he's going to have that much success with the Chargers. I'm going to say it first.
Okay.
Because
time out. Define that much success.
Well, you're going to lose. Okay, the wide receiver draft pick you got last year, Quentin
Johnson.
I think he might have had a few 100 yards receiving, maybe like 330, 400 yards, if that. Well, Mike Williams can't stay healthy. Keenan Allen. There's $60 million cap hit between the two of them. Khalil Mack and Bosa, another $50 million or something like that in their cap hit. So that's 4 players. You got Derwin James. You have talent, but you're paying this talent so much. You're paying them as if they have gotten you to 11 and 12 wins over the time since you've been paying them. You're paying them for their talent, but you're not getting the results. Well, you got a new coach coming in. He's got to strip some of that down. We haven't heard anything about Kellen Moore. I saw something about he's going to interview for another OC position. So maybe he's gotten word that he might not be retained.
I doubt he would.
I mean, you don't know. So with that being said, is that getting new pieces in while instilling his philosophy. And then you got to wonder, is Justin Herbert, was he Carson Wentz? Remember Carson Wentz had that great year when he was going to be MVP, and then he tried to dive into the end zone towards ACL. He hasn't been the same since. It might have been a situation where you have the great rookie year, and that is your ceiling. And everything else is going to be less than that.
Going to lose Austin Eckler.
You're not going to be, you won't go into any season as the favorite to win your division. So the best case scenario you're looking at is the number 5 seed. You're not going to be.
The thing is, though, is that Harbaugh's a winner. Harbaugh's a winner. Throughout his first tenure in the NFL, 44-19-1. Second best winning percentage with at least 50 games coached. I think that he brings culture and attitude. Like, remember we talked about that earlier, where Bill Belichick would have bought Atlanta culture, the idea that we can win, so on and so forth. I think Harbaugh brings that in, because when I look at Brandon Staley, he was the defensive coordinator for the Rams, but the Rams is obviously Sean McVay's show. There's some,
and they traded away everything to stack their defense,
and they traded everything away, and that's why
we could have called that. Like,
that's why I hate. But that's why I hate when people do the whole, the Rams won the Super Bowl with Matt Stafford, not Jared Goff. And I'm like, yeah, because they brought in Von Miller, Odell Beckham. It wasn't just one for one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with the Chargers, I think they're going to have a slow year one. But I just trust Jim Harbaugh that he's going to instill the culture there. Now, as far as your Justin Herbert point, I don't know. Because we saw this guy throw 700 passes in a season and only have 25 touchdown passes. So is he elite in the first place, or is he just a dude with a strong arm that? Is he just a dude with a strong arm that throws a lot?
I think he's like we were talking about in our first podcast we were on tonight. He's just a real good locker room guy, just a real a real steady guy, first in, last out. Just he says all the right things, he does all the right things, and they're gonna pay him accordingly, and they're gonna get Phillip Rivers 2.0. He's gonna be fifth or sixth amongst his contemporaries. They're gonna put him out of the playoffs either in the regular season where he's not gonna make it, or he's gonna match up with his contemporaries and get beat out because he makes great throws. But I got a couple of, video clips of Brock Purdy, doing things in the playoffs that are leading to winning. I have Trevor Lawrence coming back from 27 points down. You have tons of evidence of Mahomes. You have Stafford, these guys that, can really galvanize a team. I don't have a lot of that with Justin Herbert. What I have is a guy who looks the part, acts the part, got paid the part. They paid him like he's Joe Burrow.
But what you do have is, to some degree, within reason, you have a manageable division to get to the playoffs. Andy Reid.
Where? The
in the
AFC West?
Yeah. Like you are the biggest Sean Payton critic I ever met in my life. And they're going to lose Russell Wilson probably this offseason. The Raiders just brought in,
too much. They're running that back.
The Raiders just brought in Antonio Pierce, and they got Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Who knows? There's been rumors that Andy Reid may step down. And even if he doesn't step down this year, he got another 2 or 3 years? Something along those lines. So
how many years do you have with Harbaugh? Harbaugh's a 4-year. He's a college student playing. He's a freshman. As a senior, he graduates and he's gone. So you're paying. That's the thing. It's different at Michigan. I'm not saying Harbaugh can't be a great coach. It's just that I don't know if his coaching is great enough to overcome the fact that you got 5 dudes that are going to be taking major chunks of your cap hit, and 3 of them are injury prone, and then 3 of them also get old. Keenan Allen's old. Greg Williams been in the league for a while. Khalil Mack's been around for a while, and Joey Bosa, he misses a lot of time. So you're putting a lot of emphasis on Harbaugh's success at other places. I think his success at other places because I don't think there was an expectation for him to be successful. We talked about that earlier on the hot box. Is that I think sometimes you grade your season against the preseason expectations, not the result. I'm not sure what the expectation was when he took over with Alex Smith in San Francisco. I think they were doing pretty bad for years. And then Alex Smith was on the verge of being a number 1 pick, being a bust. And he, revitalized his career. Then he brought in Kaepernick. And then when it was like, okay, this might not work out, he went to Michigan.
But I don't think that's why he went to Michigan, though. There was just
don't you think he would have been like, hey, I got a team that can get back to the Super Bowl year after year after year? You think he's going to Michigan?
Everything that I had read, there was a lot of turmoil between him and the ownership. And that's just the type of dude that he is. So going back to your point,
team can get back to the Super Bowl, you ignore the turmoil. If I can be a Super Bowl winning head coach, I'll ignore. I'm Jimmy Johnson with it because Jerry Jones didn't.
Yeah, but you're not the boss. You don't get to make that decision.
I don't know, but it was like I can ignore what's going on up here because I'm out here fielding a championship team. No matter what they say about me or how they feel about me, when they look out the window, they know that I'm the head coach of this championship quality team. Yes, I know the Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson situation kind of fizzled out, but Harbaugh always seemed like a guy that had options of 1 foot out the door all the time. And I'm not sure if the Chargers are getting a guy that's full in, because once you get there and realize you can't stack your team, and you got to really he
was at Michigan. He wasn't at Ohio State or Georgia or Alabama or Clemson.
What about their $163 million football facility?
Yeah,
$163 million football facility.
They didn't have all these players that you're talking about, though. Like, they had Blake Corum, but they didn't have like Trevor Lawrence or something.
They had a $163 million facility.
Yogi instructor, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State.
Yeah, but guess who doesn't have that?
And guess who's got the
Utah.
least talent out of all those schools I just said?
Kansas
Michigan.
State doesn't have that kind of facility. They don't like
Well, we'll
everybody
be
doesn't
talking about
have that
Kansas
kind of
State.
thing. That's what I'm saying. So think about $163 million houses. How crazy that look. They had that in one football facility, not sports complex. Their football facility was $163 million.
Big time college
So
football.
it was big time college football. The Chargers are notorious for being cheap. Those owners are notorious for being cheap. They fire coaches all the time because they're cheap.
Yeah, they're spending this money to get him.
But that's why they overpaid. Because they're so notorious for being cheap, they overpaid for players that aren't going to last. Like I said, I like Harbaugh. I think he's a good coach. I just don't think the success that everyone's going to jump on, because they're going to have the Chargers next year 12-5. People, I think they could.
Nah, I don't think so.
Watch. You watch the hyperbole and like the antics that people go with, because it's Harbaugh. Harbaugh's personality is very similar to the Bill Belichick.
Still going to be in charge of that division for the most part. Like they're still, I'm sure they're going to go get some wide receivers to fix their problems, like a DeAndre Hopkins or somebody like that. And
probably go get Keenan Allen for the Chargers pay half.
So Kansas City's probably going to be good for 11 or 12 wins next year. I think that the Chargers should feel. We'll see what actually happens, but they're still ahead of the Raiders right now.
They landed the biggest fish. They definitely landed the biggest fish of all the coaching hires. I mean, we still have two that are remaining. I don't know if Belichick.
Yeah, we'll get to that. No, he's not. He ain't gonna get. No, he's not. But while we're there, these Carolina Panthers hired Mr. David Canales, and I'm trying to figure out why. So I saw that he has experience as a quarterback coach, wide receiver coach. This was his first year as an offensive coordinator in Tampa. And
he had double-digit years. Like, what was that, 12 years or so?
Yeah, I think
experience.
Coach quarterbacks and receivers. Yeah, he did some college stuff before that. But he was an offensive coordinator for 1 year, right? And I know the wave is hire the hot offensive coordinator, but he's not the hot offensive coordinator.
Yeah, not at all.
And I guess I'll throw a whole lot of pause on all that too. But but as I look at this, they were 18th in points per game. They were 27th in rush yards per game, last in yards per carry. Like, where is this offense that I'm supposed to be impressed by? That they were 20th. They were 20th in total yards.
I'm gonna throw you another number real quick. Week 18, Tampa Bay has to beat Carolina to win the division. They put up 9 points. So you saw this guy against your terrible defense, your terrible team that was falling apart, that the owners out here throwing drinks at Jacksonville
fans the week before, it like Raheem Morris.
And you're like, that guy that put up 9 points on our mediocre defense is the guy to be our head coach. Carolina doesn't want to win. I think some teams just don't want to win. Yeah, I believe Carolina is one of those.
It reminds me of that Jada kiss. I'm just happy to be here,
Yeah, I don't know what Tepper's doing.
He don't know what he's doing. He's throwing drinks at the fans and all this. He got a whole lot of mess going on. Carolina is just they're DOA. I don't think they should have got rid of Frank Reich in the first place. And if you were going to get rid of Frank Reich, you would at least do a little bit better on the hire, from the standpoint of Frank Reich, regardless of how you feel about him, he had coaching experience. So you would think maybe we need somebody with a little more experience.
Must be hard to work with.
Got to be something, because I don't think Indy should have fired him when they did.
Either he's arrogant, he's an asshole, or he just doesn't listen. Like, he doesn't take.
Hey, wouldn't you be arrogant if you almost had Carson Wentz as an MVP?
It has to be something tangible, because we talked about Bieniemy as one of our early episodes when we first started the show. Shout out to all the fans that have been watching this whole time. But it's like, it has to be something with him as an individual that says, you know what? in these moments where no one else understands it, because we didn't understand it when he got fired in Indy. We didn't understand like when we heard it was like that doesn't make any sense. And we can see this like from the outside looking in. We looked at the Indy situation, got fired, and then with Carolina, you knew when you traded away all these picks and you traded away a couple of good players to get to the number one pick to draft a rookie, no matter what his size is. I know I bang on a lot of these guys' sizes, but just a rookie, just a guy learning the game. Your expectations couldn't be. What CJ Stroud did was an anomaly, but CJ Stroud was on that trajectory when they fired Frank Wright. So it just was it was like the whole process was just very, very weird. So even hiring this guy that was in division that you saw, then the last game when it was like win and you're in, your game plan only mustered up 9 points against a handful of guys that were like, man, I'm done in Carolina. We talk about player turnovers, like 53 men on the active roster, like 18 to 25 of those guys aren't going to be with the team the next year. Like the guys on the 53 man roster on the week 18, most of those guys are moving on. So it's like
Carolina got the Bears the number one draft pick with like 3 or 4 games left to go.
It was locked in.
It was already locked in. You know what I mean? But hey, I just had a thought though. If Andy Reid does step down, because like I said, it's been rumors. I don't know how official they are. I saw it on NBCSports.com today, for example. But they got to hire Bieniemy, right?
If no one else does, he would have to be candidate 1. You can give Nagy 2, Spags 3 if you want to keep it in-house.
Right.
If you want to keep familiarity, if you want to keep the verbiage, if you want to keep, the pass codes and the office locations and the parking spots, those have to be 1, 2, 3. But I don't know. Maybe the bringing me back might not be what we think. Maybe his departure was a little bit more abrupt, and it wasn't an amicable.
Well,
I hope you do well. You're gonna find somebody new, kind of like
We saw the video of him in Mahomes against Indy, like going into halftime, all upset at each other or whatever. And I was just
that happens.
Everybody made a big deal about that. And if it was Tom
Brady, I yell
Brady,
at my own kid, and I love him.
Bill O'Brien, it would be celebrated. But as we continue, the Raiders decided to hang on to Antonio Pierce, which surprised me. I'm happy to see it, but I'm surprised.
I'm surprised because I'm surprised because I always feel like it's the interim coach is always tough for me because they say you fire the head coach, you bring in an interim coach, but that guy was on the staff, so the lack of success has to be on his shoulders as well. But in the same sense, I've also noticed where they brought in, like the Colts brought in Jeff Saturday last year from outside of the staff, and it didn't work at all. I believe the player support of Antonio Pierce, I think the showmanship of the Las Vegas Raiders, because the Raiders are always like, they're probably the biggest showman team in the league. They're in Vegas. They need to sell out that stadium. I think the players responded to them. So I saw the Kansas City Chiefs game where their quarterback didn't complete a pass in the second half. I saw them win games 17-16. It wasn't like Antonio Pierce came in with this. He just came in with a different attitude. The attitude's not going to be enough come August. So from now until August is going to have to be a real identity. And you have to figure, like, is it going to be Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it going to be Aiden O'Connell? Or we going to get another third-round quarterback? Or are we going to, try to call Arizona and see if they're willing to move off Kyler Murray, and we'll take on that money? Like, you're going to have to do something drastic because you didn't do anything drastic with the coaching hire for a team that needs something. You need something offensively. Do you move Devontae Adams for a couple of first-round picks and try to supplement your team with that way? Because you don't really have that many assets on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But hiring Antonio Pierce is good. If the players wanted it and the owner listened, I think you're on the right path. So
Definitely a good start. Yeah, you had
just
Max Crosby talking about asking for a trade if they didn't hire him, and they went 5-4 with him. Won their first game against Kansas City since 2020 at Arrowhead, no less.
yeah,
So I
but
mean,
in that same game, that the quarterback didn't complete a pass in the second half.
hey, the name of the
They got
game is
2 touchdowns.
hello. You play to win the game.
They got 2 touchdowns in 7 seconds off defensive or offensive blunders that turned
Hey,
into touchdowns by
a
Kansas
win
City.
is a win, and obviously, like he had them playing hard, but at the same time, he did go 5-4. But one of those 4 was a 3-0 loss at home to Minnesota.
But then they came back and dropped 63.
Yeah, 63 on the Chargers. They played Miami tough. So the players obviously heard whatever message he was given. But like you said, I agree with that, is that the season is going to start. Preseason is going to get here. It's going to be time to hit people. And you're going to need to do a little bit more than talking. So then you got Tennessee with the son of Bill, Brian Callahan, who wasn't even calling his own plays in Cincinnati. What we thinking?
That's not even a topic because the interview candidate wasn't Eric Bieniemy. We haven't even brought that up because it happens more often than not where the offensive coordinator doesn't call the plays, gets hired. Because, like I said, as a Falcons fan, I wish somebody else was calling the plays in Atlanta and Arthur Smith was just standing there, just wearing a hat, like with a microphone that wasn't connected and not making any decisions at all. But that's just me. I don't know how that's gonna work. I know they're gonna strip down their offense because you can't keep Malik Willis, Tannehill, and Will Levis.
Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry's probably gone.
Derrick Henry was given a farewell tour since November.
Mm-hmm. DeAndre Hopkins is going to ask out probably.
Ask out. I don't even know why he signed that deal. That was definitely one of those money over.
Well, I think that was the only team that was offering him anything at that time.
I think they were the only team that was offering him anything probably close to what he was asking for.
Yeah.
He probably would have been better off going to Kansas City for $8 million.
Hey, he still might.
Probably not now because they're looking at it like, now we'll give you 6. Because you don't want to be in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I like it. I like like I said, it's the same thing that I said about the Falcons. If you're gonna start over, start over.
Right.
Give me a fresh guy. Give him an opportunity. Give him a couple of years. It's gonna be growing pains for every single one of these coaches. The same way it is growing pains for rookie right tackles, rookie punters, rookie kickers. First year owners. Ask David Tepper. He's been struggling ever since he bought the team. In Carolina, it's gonna take time. You rarely catch lightning in the bottle with these hires, but I pair him with the young Will Levis. I move up from Malik Willis the easiest way that I can. Maybe if he's willing to stay as a backup, as a gadget quarterback, like how they do a lot of college quarterbacks, where your running guy comes in for your wildcat type plays. If he's willing to do that and still be a backup quarterback, then I'll keep him. Whatever you could do with the Tannehill deal. I mean,
yeah, he got to go.
You got to tear it down. If you tear it down, run it back with the young head coach and the young starting quarterback.
We entered that part of the show too. I got the Kobe eye going. You know what I'm saying? We up in here. You know what I'm saying? That's how you know it's real. But so there's 2 teams left that need a head coach. My beloved Washington Commanders.
I imagine they're looking at one of these 8 coordinators.
I got a list right here. I got a list right here.
It has to be.
So you got so this is the list of potential candidates. You got Ben Johnson,
offensive coordinator
for the Detroit Lions. Bobby Slowick, from the Texans, who was formerly on Washington's staff. Mike McDonald, the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn, the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, who is the Ravens associate coach slash defensive line coach. So we'll see how big of a candidate he actually is. So out of that list, I'm on board with Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator from the Ravens. When I look at
Is
everything,
Bieniemy not going to get a shot because he got hired by the old regime?
That's what I'm thinking. They say that he got an interview. He did get an interview allegedly, so we'll see. But that's what I think it is. And you can't quantify the offensive, how I was talking about Canales earlier, about how Washington's offense was as bad as their defense was. They were starting the first year quarterback, Sam Howell, who got sacked.
Sam Howell he got sacked because he held onto the ball up, but he put up a lot of yards.
He led the league in passing yards for a couple of weeks. So I mean, with Ben Johnson, it sounds like he's riding that wave of look at the Detroit Lions right now, and they're in the NFC Championship game. Jared Goff but Washington doesn't have a Jared Goff or anything close to it. So I just don't know enough about him as far as, is he a leader?
So a dude named Drake out there, not Aubrey.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Then you got Seattle. Who last I saw, they had requested to interview Mike Vrabel. But they have done interviews with Patrick Graham, who was the Raiders defensive coordinator, Ehiro Evero, who was the Panthers defensive coordinator, Frank Smith.
How's that guy get an interview?
Yeah. Frank Smith, who is the offensive coordinator down in Miami. And of course, last but not least, the fearless leader of the Legion of Boom, Dan Quinn.
If I'm okay, so to bring it back, I know I talk about my team a lot. You guys have noticed that as you follow the show. Dan Quinn going back to Seattle is the equivalent of Raheem Morris going back to Atlanta. It did not end well. Like the whole, he left, he went to Atlanta and he tried to establish the Legion of Boom down in Atlanta. And then the Legion of Boom fell apart in Seattle, and they had a good glue on it because they had Russell Wilson still. But bringing Dan Quinn back doesn't bring back what Pete Carroll did for your organization. It just brings back a guy that worked for Pete Carroll. So that's the piece that baffles me. Seattle's one of those teams, they need to get a coach that's established now because their prime players are not rookies. They're not using their draft pick this next current draft to rebuild their team. They have a team that's ready to go 10-7. I don't want to say win now but they have a 10-7 team. They have a 10-7 roster.
I mean, they were a game away from the playoffs this year.
Yeah, so they have a 10-7 in the NFC is probably going to get you in. I know there's always some nuance to it. Because you weren't expecting as many teams to be as bad as they were. So some teams, but 10-7 should get you in the NFC. It should get you at a 5, 6, or 7 seed.
Yeah, I think that
if you have a team that's built to get you there, you got to get a guy you got to get a Vrabel. Maybe not Belichick because he might want too much power, but
well, when I think about Seattle, I think about something that you said earlier. If you're going to tear it down, tear it down. You can't replace Pete Carroll with a Pete Carroll disciple. Or somebody that was on his coaching tree or under him before.
Yeah, but Seattle is fortunately in a position where they don't need to tear it down.
Right. But what I mean by that is it's time for a new era as far as maybe culture, maybe philosophy. You don't need to go back to the same roots that you had. So I think
I wouldn't hire a guy that was really taught extensively by Pete Carroll.
Right. I like Mike.
It's not a knock on Pete Carroll, but it's it's going to be one of those same things.
Out of the names that I just
read,
am I
with my ex because it makes more sense now, or am I just here because it's easy? It was an easy choice. Yeah. This person knows the way around the building. It's no.
Yeah, out of the names that I just read, for me, it would be Vrabel out of those names. You know, if I'm Washington, out of the names that I read, Mike McDonald's the answer. Like, you know, I get it. You
The
got
guy
a
that
young quarter,
used to be assistant there
you know,
with
Slowick.
Jay Gruden, Slowick.
Yeah, he's with the offense coordinator for the Texans.
So he was there with Jay Gruden, correct? With
Yes,
that, they had the whole Wonder Kid staff.
the
They had
All Stars.
McVay,
Yeah,
McDaniel.
LaFleur. You know, say
God.
McVay, everybody. You know what I mean? So I get it, right? But I would say no. You know, I would say no.
You
You
don't
know,
think Bieniemy should get a shot in Washington?
I think he should. I just if it were up to me,
You're
if it were up to me,
you're
I
the
would give him a
third
fair
vote at a
shot. I
hiring
just don't think
committee.
he's gonna get a fair shot.
3 people on the hiring committee. Each person gets 1 vote. You are the third vote.
So
It's 1 for
I
other
would
guys,
vote.
1
I
for
would vote for
Bieniemy.
I would vote for Bieniemy. But here's the problem. You know, we had the reports that came out during training camp about how he was so harsh and hurting all the players' feelings. And you know,
That's like 8 months ago. That's a long time
you
ago.
got people like Jonathan Allen, who's supposed to be a team captain, and he's out here running his mouth, doing everything but leading by example. You know,
What?
so
Saying that things suck. Sometimes you gotta call the baby ugly.
yeah,
Everybody baby ain't
I
cute.
also need to see you as the team captain when you see people fucking off and slacking.
They traded away his people next to him.
They had
They
to.
traded the dudes that
They had
they
to.
they traded away Sweat. They traded away
Chase Young.
Chase Young.
They had to. You got
And
to.
he's like,
You need draft picks. You need capital to try to make, because this isn't a one player thing. This isn't insert Jared Goff and all of a sudden Washington's going to take off. This isn't bring Deion Sanders in from Dallas or San Francisco or
yeah,
wherever.
but think about you're in the trenches. I'm in the trenches. Okay, think about this. Tuesday we're gonna record this show. You got to do this show with somebody else besides me, because I'm supposed to be getting paid or getting treated a certain way, and leadership doesn't do it, and they just bring in another person, and I'm gone. I'm off on somebody else's show that you can't participate in, and it's like, yo, we need that same energy that you had last week when you guys went live. You're like, this is not the same partner. This is not the same group of people. This is not the same. This person doesn't understand my philosophy. So when he
But if you've
expressed
been
his
here for
frustration,
so
it makes
long,
sense.
aren't you a part of that culture too?
Yeah, but he had other people he thought was part of it, and it was like they probably wanted to get rid of Rivera for a while.
That's why he's out of here. He's going to leave too. He's gone too. There's rumors that Green Bay is interested in him, so he's going to be gone too. And you know, Washington is.
So yeah, in that case, I'd take a rookie head coach. I'd take the rookie quarterback, and I will move any veteran that has a movable contract that's going to get me any kind of viable pieces. Any kind of viable pieces, I'm a move, because we talked about this before. NFL teams they're basically carbon copies with a few exceptions in a few positions. The offensive linemen from teams 1 through 32 probably average within an inch in height and 5 to 8 pounds in weight. Your cornerbacks are probably same thing, 4.45 guys or 4.5 40-yard times, 5'10" to 6'1". Those are your defensive backs. Your linebackers are probably around 225 to 240. Like, you're going to get the same basic team from the Northeast all the way down to Southern California. It just, some teams have a few guys in exceptional positions. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, what they have in Miami, that speed. They're not very big, but that speed and route running ability, that's what sets them apart. Josh Allen at 6'5", 235, that sets them apart. Patrick Mahomes, his ability to put the ball into tight squares anywhere on the field, any weather, cold, sunny, hot, up 10, down 10, up 17, down 24. Justin Herbert's ability to just throw the ball deep. Jamar Chase's ability to get open. Just like, those are your few exceptions. But for the most part, every team is going to be built on the same basic platform. You just got to match the philosophy with the coach and the most important pieces that you need. Like, if you need toughness, then you need to have a guy like Ray Lewis as your middle linebacker.
See, I would
He
love
can be your bell cow for your toughness that will, resonate throughout your team.
so to answer your earlier question, I would like Bieniemy paired with Jaden Daniels. We saw because the same way, and I know like context, right? But the same
Right.
way that Washington's offense didn't take off this year, Patrick Mahomes threw the most interceptions that he threw in his career this season. Obviously the receivers aren't very good, but the same way that Washington's numbers didn't look good, Kansas City's regressed. So
you think that's the enemy?
I think there has to be something to it.
Some
I'm
kind of
not saying that without Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes is barely a Pro Bowler or anything like that. But
yeah.
but I think that there's something there because we saw
the lack of weapons in Kansas City. I don't know if they really. I don't know if Bieniemy could have fixed the fact that that game against Philly when MVS was wide open on that deep post route and it hit him in both hands.
I don't know. Bieniemy was the one that pointed out in the Super Bowl, "Hey, run these plays." He was the one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was because
and there's
was going zero coverage and they were blitzing and press. They were trying to press coverage and go zero blitz.
But also, there's a certain continuity, and we saw Andy Reid with Donovan McNabb and something called FredEx and something called Todd Pinkston.
But he also had Terrell Owens, and I had to argue with another guy in the group.
Facts. If he wins the championship this year, then Cups need to just stand down. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is right now. You know what I'm saying? But
you have to have certain talent in place. T.O. on your team was those quarterbacks. Jeff Garcia had contract years. Tony Romo had contract years. Donovan McNabb had his best years. So Mahomes, Bieniemy, I understand the offensive coordinator does play a major role as a fan of a team who I went to a Jets-Falcons game in December, and I'm sitting there with the fans, and I'm calling out the plays, and like this Falcons fan and his girlfriend sit behind me. She was like, maybe you should call the plays. I'm like, I should, because he does the same thing every single week. Like,
yeah,
I knew it was coming.
This will make you laugh. Word on the street is if Vrabel gets a job somewhere, he might be bringing in Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator.
I don't know what he saw in Arthur Smith that would make him hitch his wagon to that. I'm not knocking Arthur Smith. I just think it wasn't creative enough. I think it just was like I'm a novice. I'm just a fan of the team, and I'm sitting in row 2 on the Falcons side watching the formation, thinking like, oh, here we go. Here's a stretch play to the left. Or watching Desmond Ridder not throw the post route. Granted, he threw it late and got a pass interference call. A little scuffle in the end zone. It's pretty dope. And I watched.
We're about to get to that, Residente. We're about to get to that.
Just man lose his mind, yelling at the refs. But that's still a very tough position to be in. Bieniemy, like I said, I know Bieniemy gets a bad rap because the rumor he had like about 15 different coaching interviews over the past few years. But the same, like I said, Frank Wright must be difficult to deal with. Maybe Bieniemy's in the same boat. But if I'm Kansas City and Andy Reid steps down, he still won for me because at a minimum, he was willing to yell at Patrick Mahomes walking up the field in Indianapolis. Sometimes you need somebody that's going to yell at you. You need a coach that's going to chew you out and not just let you just run with the status quo. You need a coach that's be like, no. You missed that. He ran the right route. Mm-hmm. You hit the check down too early. You didn't come back to the check down until it was too late and you got sacked. It's not on this guard. He didn't miss the block. You should already got rid of that ball. You wanted to do this. And I think Mahomes having a level of success that he's already had, I think that's the kind of coach you need, because you don't want a coach that comes in who just praises him and never gives him any criticism, because what's going to happen there is that, well, you're just going to keep giving them chances, chance after chance. You need a guy that's going to challenge you. Steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron.
So
I think B&B would be. I think he'd be the steal in that situation.
I agree. So says it all. Is it time?
I've picked against Kansas City 2 times. The last 2 weeks, I picked against them, and even 6 or 7 weeks ago, I said they would lose their first playoff game. And I was thinking, like, do I keep this trend up and just for the sake of the trend, or do I do some coaching analysis and really think about what does Baltimore bring, the weather, the playmaking ability of Baltimore, Kansas City, and the way that Baltimore has played against playoff teams over the last month is just it's tough to pick against them.
Hell, this whole season.
Hold on. Matter of fact, I gotta stop. I gotta grab my phone. It's on the charge in the other room. I'll be right back.
Yeah, this whole season. So, as we sit here and we think about this, Baltimore is just on a different level right now. Problem is, Kansas City has that man. I know Don Mikowski is the magic man, but we might have a new magic man. Patrick Mahomes is pulling stuff out of his butt to win these games. Against Buffalo last week, they only punted once. Patrick Mahomes threw the darts to MVS, who actually caught it. Rashid Rice had the big game against Miami, 130 yards. So why do I keep picking against Kansas City? Well, I picked them to lose to Miami because I thought Miami was going to be able to run the ball on them. I picked them to lose to Buffalo because I thought it was Buffalo's time. I'm picking them to lose to Baltimore because I just don't see where the points are going to come from. Now, the part that people miss is that we've been talking about the Cleveland Browns defense all year as being right next to Baltimore's, but we saw the Browns defense on the road. A little known fact, Kansas City is the second best defense in the NFL. So you got number 1 against number 2. No quarterback has passed for 300 yards against Kansas City this year, and it ain't going to be Lamar Jackson. So I think that this game is going to be a low-scoring slugfest, something along the lines of 24-20, but it's going to be one of those games where a few scores happen early, and then the game just kind of stalls out. So Lamar Jackson, 2-3 in the playoffs now after the win last week. 1-3 against Kansas City overall. Against Kansas City, 56.6 completion percentage. 4 touchdowns and 2 picks, respectable. But obviously that makes Mahomes 3-1 against the Ravens, completing 70% of his passes. But the problem is that this game is in Baltimore. It's in the rain.
Check the weather.
Baltimore averages 160.6 rushing yards a game on the season and ran for 229 against Houston last week. They're just on a heater right now. I wanted to pick Kansas City. As I looked at all these numbers, I tried to find a way. I just couldn't find it. So sounds like Marlon Humphrey's going to be back. Mark Andrew is a full practice participant. So you got to deal with him and Likely. And we saw what Dalton Kincaid did to Kansas City last week. Baltimore will be able to run against Kansas City, but Kansas City has the defensive backs in McDuffie and Snead that should be able to keep the Ravens receivers at bay to where Kansas City can experiment with putting 8 in the box. Now, the problem with that is obviously you have to be aware of Lamar's legs. So how loose can Lamar get? Because we saw the Texans get the Ravens into a few 3rd and longs, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s, and then Lamar would just take off. So these two teams haven't played since 2021. So new players, new teams, new staffs. So, we're going to see, could this be Andy Reid's last game?
Baltimore, like I said, if you go back to the Miami game, San Francisco game, the playoff game, this obscure stat that I never really thought mattered much until as you watch Baltimore, them having the lead at the 2-minute warning in 16 or 17 games, because like week 18, their 17th game, they already locked into the number 1 seed, but they had the lead at the 2-minute warning in every one of those games. It's an odd stat, but that just shows like no one dominated them. And I think that Kansas City, I don't want to use the word exposed because I think people are kind of overusing that word. I can't recall many games this season where Kansas City was exceptional at 2 of the 3 phases for a majority of the game.
Right.
Their field goal kicking is always on, but it felt like a lot of their field goals were because they couldn't convert on 3rd and 5. So like the offense wasn't moving the ball. They'd get the big play, they get the punt, they get the turnover, and Buckner can, he's kicking it comfortably from 55.
Mm-hmm.
So that's essentially you get to the 38-yard line. That's a 55-yard field goal. So you get a turnover at midfield, you get 12 to 14 yards, or you get 20 to 30 yards from the 45. Just like that. You get that intermediate kind of drive, 6 plays, you get a couple of first downs, but you stall out because on 3rd and 8, they just double Kelsey. And now you're kicking a 55, 56, 57-yard field goal, and he's knocking it down. So it looks like it's giving special teams bumps, but it's not really giving the offensive bumps. And then the defense plays great. So then you have a game like Philly where it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you need the offense to make a play for Kansas City, and MVS has to go through his hands. Because you and I were watching that game, and you were a few seconds ahead of me because I think I was watching on my TV, or I was watching on the stream. So you were like, ooh, and you didn't say anything. I was like, what happened? You like,
yeah, I think I had this face on.
Yeah, and I was like, so then I saw the throw, and then I saw the drop, and I was like, oh, that's what you meant. I don't have those moments with Baltimore.
Right.
I think Baltimore just on 3rd and 6, if they want to run it, they can get. I believe they're going to get 6 yards on the drive. They're down 7-3. I believe they're going to get the touchdown. A lot like what I talked about Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going to be down 14-3, but I feel like when he gets the ball back, he's going to do everything he can that drive that he got the ball back to get points. He's going to run through people. He's going to run in the linebackers. Mahomes doesn't play that way. Mahomes does everything like a tactician. And I'm not sure that offensive marriage ever really occurred all year long. It's looked good in the playoffs, but you still had guys like McCall Hartman, reaching out for the goal line and fumbling the ball out of the back of the end zone. So, like Mahomes' effort, if they can figure out how to get some players in there for the future years, but like I said, if John said, if he wins this year, I don't know if we're gonna be back on the hot box because he's not gonna hear what we gotta say because we're gonna be able to hit him with the facts over feelings.
Right.
And he's not gonna, Cup not gonna want to hear it, but I understand it. I want to pick Kansas City just because I really like the idea of Mahomes getting back to his 4th Super Bowl and just being able to say, I'm 42 and I watched these dynasties just chunk after chunk after chunk for my entire life. If you think about the Redskins when they were the Redskins, you think about the Cowboys when they were on in the early 90s.
Yep,
Whitney Houston sing the Super Bowl. You could throw in the Buffalo Bills in there.
Yeah.
You want to throw in the entertainment value of Peyton Manning and the St. Louis Rams with that Greatest Show on Turf, because Peyton Manning was out there playing on turf too. He was doing the same thing. But then you add Tom Brady and the Patriots winning Super Bowls. Then you have the excitement of Michael Vick in Atlanta. It's just like so many just little facets of football. I think this Mahomes Super Bowl AFC Championship run, this Andy Reid run, I think it's quite remarkable.
6 straight, and this is the first one on the road, so that's impressive when it's within itself.
6 years he's been doing this.
He's got 3
Um,
playoff losses, and 2 of them were in overtime.
Yeah, but I don't know a human alive that can look at me and say why they don't like Lamar Jackson. You can't say I don't like his hair. You sound like a crazy person. I don't like his tattoos. Everybody's got tattoos. Lamar Jackson, he's just one of those guys. You know, like in high school, like there was a student that all the teachers loved.
Mm-hmm.
He's that guy. And then you want to hate him because all the teachers like him, and then you meet him, and the first thing you do, he helps you pick your bag up when your book bag fell open or something.
Yeah, I think
you're a starting quarterback. Why you here? Like, oh, I just like helping people.
I think the story of this game is the defenses, though. You know, Baltimore this season
they're like 1-2 though.
Yeah,
Kansas City and Baltimore, the defense are 1-2. They're just not known for in Kansas City.
Baltimore's only given up more than 24 points twice this season, and that was the overtime game against the Rams in the game that they blew the lead against Cleveland.
If Kansas City scores over 21 points, they're undefeated. It's the same thing.
Yeah, there you go. I was just about to say that. And
literally, it's the same. It's and that's the thing. It's just not as sexy because we know Baltimore for being a tough defense because we know Ed Reed, we know Terrell Suggs,
right,
Haloti Nada, Saragusa, Ray Lewis. We know these names. We don't think about that. We think about Derek Thomas, and that's the extent of the defensive prowess that we think about with the Kansas City Chiefs.
You know what I'm saying? I do remember Christian Okoye, though.
Yo, when Steve, but do you remember when Steve Atwater hit him?
Yeah.
Right? The night was the Nigeria nightmare.
Yeah. But you know, but Kansas City has only given up 24 points once this year. Pop quiz. Who was the team that scored more than 24 against Kansas City this year?
I've seen this a lot because I watched a lot of first teams first. I should know this. Was it Buffalo?
No.
That wasn't the I'm not lined up on sides properly, no eyebrows, Kadarius Toney game.
No.
Yo, man got no eyebrows. How do you have platinum teeth and no eyebrows? That don't make any sense.
The answer is that Sunday night game up at Lambeau Field.
Oh, when Jordan Love was out there saying I'm here.
Yeah, 27-19.
That was his rival game.
Yeah, that was the only game Kansas City gave up more than 24 this season. So, like I said, I think this is going to be a more defensive game than expected when we look at the quarterbacks. And this is going to be the game that shows once and for all those out there that don't believe it, it's a team sport.
Nah, it's all about the quarterback.
So we transition over to Santa Clara.
Did you really name this C Black Kneecaps Attack?
I did. I just did it like 5 minutes ago too. I just changed.
Shout out to Mike. Mike does all the behind the scenes stuff. Like, you know, shout out to everybody who's watching us live and who's going to watch the records, everything else. Mike does the behind the scenes stuff. Like, Mike is the talent on the show. He's a producer. He's like the brainchild for a lot of the things we do. We go back and forth on it, but like the preview that me and Mike have.
When Residente made the comment about if Mahomes wins this year, I made that up the time ago. I made that up, and then I just did this one right after. But Residente should agree with this. San Francisco should never, ever play in a stadium that's not called Candlestick Park. That's just the way it works. You know,
first of all, Levi Stadium, what it's called now, in Santa Clara is a very nice stadium.
I'm sure it is.
There,
bring back Candlestick.
I went back when it was a Utah versus Washington Pac-12 championship back in like 2018.
Rest in peace to the Pac-12.
Yo, it was dudes literally just smoking reefer right outside the bathroom. I'm like, you're not even gonna go in the bathroom. They were in the hallway between it. I was like, yo, can I get an IPA? I don't need any of this other stuff you got going on over here.
This man just said reefer in 2024.
Reefer, straight up. I'm an old head. Don't let me see the grays. But yeah, so
are you picking the Lions or what?
I'm picking the Lions.
Whoa!
I'm picking the Lions, and I'm picking the Lions not because I think that San Francisco is inept in any way. I just believe that I posted in the group, and Rajon was like, yeah, San Francisco is a 7-point favorite.
Uh-huh.
I like Detroit because I think every single one of these championship games, when it's close, you need like a hero moment. I feel that Dan Campbell
comes along.
can generate that hero moment out of his team more than Shanahan. We all know my position, how I feel about Shanahan sometimes. I think back to the Super Bowl, Patriots, Falcons, he could be a little too cute, a little too into his philosophy, and he just kind of lucked out because there was blocks of time in San Francisco where he didn't have the key players to execute the plays that he wanted. It's like not having the energy to lift that 75-pound dumbbell. But then one day you get some good sleep, you get to the gym, you could do it. I won't say lucked up, but he was able to get Debo. He was able to get Jimmy Garoppolo to make these throws. But then when he had guys like CJ Beathard and Mullins and those guys, it just didn't work out. And we go back to the Super Bowl week. I felt they should have ran the ball, kicked the field goal, gone up 11, giving the ball back to the Patriots with 1 minute and 52 seconds left, or whatever the math would have worked out to be. And because of that, there was a lot of non-existent fourth quarter comebacks. And they talked about it last week, being down 5. He was like 0-30, being down 5 entering the fourth quarter. That's very similar to Aaron Rodgers' career record, where it was like he had a very poor record being down 4. Like being down where you needed a touchdown in the fourth quarter. It was very, very, because he didn't really galvanize his team. They were front runners.
Better down a field goal, if we remember that playoff game against San Francisco a few years ago.
He had the ball a couple times. We talk about the Seattle game, and we talked about it earlier. Shout out to Dallas Mike, when they beat Dallas in the AT&T. Then they had to come to Atlanta, and Matt Ryan and Julio. Matt Ryan, the greatest living Matt, second to Matthew McConaughey.
Not top 5 Matt.
Second Matt of all time, next to Matthew McConaughey. But Matthew McConaughey says his mother won't allow people to call him Matt because she named him Matthew from the Bible. But for the sake of this podcast, we'll let it slide. So Matt Ryan torched the Green Bay defense that year. So I think Dan Campbell has tapped into the team. I think the team believes in him. I think Jared Goff is a very good quarterback. Trading him was ballsy, but it would have looked foolish if Tart holds on to that interception against the Rams 2 years ago. It landed. It was basically a fair catch. He catches that interception. The Goff-Stafford trade is not looked at the same way. Even in the Super Bowl, when they got the holding call on the middle linebacker on the Cooper Kupp little route in the middle of the field, where he didn't touch Cooper Kupp, it's 4th and goal from the 9 for Stafford. But history, as we look at it, they won a Super Bowl. So I think Jared Goff, I think the connection between Goff, the players, the coach, the biting kneecaps was weird, but I think it resonates in that locker room. I think they believe in that philosophy. Guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson. We talked about on a previous podcast on the Hot Box. Like, you can't be saying that stuff because the video that he sent out was probably going to. But that kind of tenacity and that veracity and just that swagger that the Lions bring, I think it weighs more than what I think San Francisco's talent is there. But I'm going to take the toughness of Detroit over the 49ers.
So Jared Goff hasn't thrown an interception in his last 4 games against the 49ers. The Lions haven't turned the ball over in this postseason yet. We saw Brock Purdy play one of the worst halves of his career last week. and he came through when it mattered. Without Debo Samuel, everybody didn't think he could do it.
He made
We're out
some
there.
great
He made some
throws. He
great
made some
throws.
very
He did.
non-Mr. Irrelevant throws. I think,
He
like
did.
we talked about it before, I think the conversation around Brock Purdy is futile, and it's rudimentary at
Everybody
best.
makes a big deal about San Francisco's weapons because they have Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Iowa tight end, baby, and so on and
They
so
are
forth.
everywhere. Atlanta won't get one.
They are.
They'll be
And
sitting there needing one. They'll be like, let's go get this tackle from Fresno State.
but apparently another little known fact. The Lions got weapons too. They got Jahmyr Gibbs, who averages 11.4 yards a touch in these here playoffs.
So get him 8 touches.
Amon St. Rob Brown, who should have been a Pro Bowler. You got David Montgomery, who was a top 10 rusher in the league this year. So Detroit has weapons too. But then I heard a stat today.
Ooh, let's hear it.
That just boggled my mind. All credits out to the one and only Mina Kimes for dropping this nugget on us.
Shout out to Mina.
San Francisco is the worst defense in the NFL in short yardage situations. So 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, things along those lines. Things that sound
because
like
they know they can get you back to 3rd and 8, even if you get the first down.
Maybe, but it sounds like it's right up Dan Campbell's alley, if you know what I mean. But as I look at this, San Francisco's run defense was 3rd during the regular season, 92.3 yards per game. In their last 3 games, they give up about 10 yards more per game than that. They gave up 136 last week to the Packers. So, what are we going to see from San Francisco's run defense? That's question number 1. Question number 2, is Debo Samuel going to play? I say he will, just because of the stakes of the game.
Hennessy and Vikingen, baby. Hennessy and Vikingen.
Then the other stat that I heard that brought a little concern for Detroit for me is that outside of CeeDee Lamb, Sedarius DeLeon, outside of him, Brandon Ayuk has been the most open wide receiver in the NFL this year. Now, I don't know who gets paid to keep track of that.
Some of these stats is keeping his MIT graduates employed.
Detroit sometimes forgets that they have Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion. But who they don't forget they have is Aiden Hutchinson. There's going to be a whole lot of Aiden Hutchinson in Brock Purdy's face. Can Brock
Purdy...
hold
on. You said Detroit doesn't forget that they have Aiden Hutchinson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tampa Bay, David Canales, the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, he definitely did.
He forgot about Aiden Hutchinson.
This dude was coming off the edge unblocked. I'm like, I'm not a tactician when it comes to like sports. I just watch it and I talk slick about it twice a week on my podcast with my friend. But I'm thinking every offensive snap, I'm accounting for the best defensive lineman on the other team. Like, I don't think there'd ever be a play if I'm watching Cleveland, if I'm the coach, if I'm Baltimore and I'm playing against Cleveland, where I'm going to let Myles Garrett just come free off the edge.
And wreak havoc, yeah.
They did it so many times with Detroit, but maybe it was a scheme. Maybe it was something that Detroit was doing.
Something Detroit better not do this weekend is blitz those corners like they were against Tampa.
I mean,
because I think Shanahan will make you pay for that.
You would think. I don't know. I just don't have that much faith in Shanahan. Well, not because the results didn't really pan out. I just think that a lot of times with San Francisco is that they have. We talked about it, like Elijah Mitchell not getting the ball against Green Bay. San Francisco is a very tough defense, but you know that going in.
Right.
I talked about this with someone before, and I hope this makes sense, we have gun owners who listen. But I was telling someone, I was like, if you want to rob a gun store, and he was like, well, everybody in there is armed up. I'm like, yeah, but I know that on the outside. So when I run in, I'm going to be prepared for these 3 employees to be armed up. So my approach is going to be a little bit more aggressive. So with San Francisco, we know their linebacker play is aggressive. We know they jump run routes because they fall for play action. Detroit is great at play action passing because they do a lot of they do a lot of stretch. They have the tight end with Laporta, so they do a lot of stretch play action to the left, roll Jared Goff back out to the right. Greenlaw and Warner, those guys are such heat-seeking missiles that they can overplay it every once in a while. Jared Goff's a bigger quarterback. I think he's probably walking around like 6'4.5", a little bigger than Brock Purdy. I'm not sure if the San Francisco defense can allow Jared Goff to make something because he's an accurate thrower. I know they talk about his small hands, but your hands are irrelevant if I don't have the ball in it. If I roll off this play action and Laporta's wide open, I'm throwing it. The whole eligible wide receiver versus non-eligible with the offensive lineman coming in, I think that can be tricky. I just feel like Dan Campbell, even with his toughness and his bravado, he still works in his decision making is like within the confines of the analytics of football. It's like, oh, he's so aggressive. He's going for it at the 45-yard line at 4th and 2. Well, analytics say, yeah, go for it because you're going to punt it and they're going to get the ball at the 20. So you only give up 25 yards. You stop them. If they go 3 and out, you get the ball right back. But it looks like toughness. It feels like toughness. Granted, it's going to be on the road. I'm not sure how many Detroit fans are going to empty their bank accounts to come to that game.
Detroit's secondary really scares me in this game. You know,
they were peaking a lot in the backfield against Tampa Bay. Mike Evans run right past them.
Right, and you know they remind me a lot of that Saints defense that won the Super Bowl. Like they never stopped.
Indy.
Yeah, they never stopped anybody.
They just jumped that route.
They just made timely plays.
Porter jumped the route.
Yeah, they just made timely plays. You ready for my next?
Reggie Wayne ran a slant instead of a fucking square in, but
you ready for my next stat?
Let's hear it.
Deebo Samuel. Like I said, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? If he does play, how effective is he going to be? When he's played 10 snaps or fewer, San Francisco is 1-3, and they only average 18 points a game. So
this season or
this season
or
yes.
in general? Okay.
So how effective will he be if he does play? You know, so I don't need Deebo to be a superstar to win this game. I just need enough that you'll think about Deebo. Now, going to your point about Shanahan, he tried to throw a couple of those Deebo plays to Jawan Jennings and got him smacked up. So if you don't got Deebo, just don't run those plays. You know, let's go with that.
Listen,
but
you gotta. I can't imagine a scenario where there's a shoulder injury. If he can raise his arm even with pain, I think he still plays. I can't imagine a scenario where you've worked this many years in this offense with this coach.
He's got to.
You're on the cusp of making a Super Bowl, and like I said, if it hurts, he has 13 days to heal, and then the 14th day you got to be ready to play.
Hopefully this game isn't the which one of us is going to get bitch slapped by Baltimore again bowl. You know what I mean? So with that being said, all that analysis, all that talk, I'm going to take the 49ers to win, take the Lions to cover.
I'm taking the Lions to win. And just I'm logical, so I can't. I got to subtract emotion from this. I got to take Baltimore to win. I just can't. logically, it just doesn't make any sense. Logically, I can make a logical explanation for
We're on
Detroit.
the opposite end.
I can't make a logical explanation for Kansas City to win because I would need in this scenario, I would need for Baltimore to make 2 mistakes, either 2 mistakes on offense, and
Which they
one of them leads to directly to points. A fumble, scoop, and score.
Well, like I said earlier, right?
Or pick
Patrick
6.
Mahomes has thrown the most interceptions that he's thrown in his career.
But it's like 13.
14, but you can't stop trying to cheat for Patrick Mahomes.
He didn't throw 20.
But so what? It is what it. All I said was a fact. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight. Anyway,
I use my own bars against me.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
I made a hot line. You made it a hot song. But keep going.
It's crazy because we're on the other side of this because, like, you originally picked Kansas City, and you're like, I can't find a logical reason. I want to pick Baltimore, and I'm like, I picked Baltimore, but I want to pick Kansas City because I trust their quarterback more. Like, he's been here before. And when I look at it,
I think Kansas City needs Baltimore to do something wrong, either early,
but they can.
But that's the thing.
So think about it like this.
Okay, so
the Texans ran a punt back for a touchdown last week, right?
Think about this. We're recording on. Let's think about this. Okay, we'll use 2 examples. The last couple of big games.
Why we got to use 2? I was trying to say something too.
Okay, I'll use yours. I'm gonna use mine real quick. You use yours. The Baltimore safety against San Francisco.
Kyle Hamilton.
No. When
they got the safety.
Jackson, when he bumped into the referee because he fell, he got the safety.
Yeah.
Now, 32 teams in the league. That kind of play against San Francisco. Does Tampa Bay recover from that?
No.
Atlanta?
No.
Carolina?
No.
Miami?
Maybe.
So, like, all these other teams, Seattle, the Rams, Arizona, Minnesota.
No.
So, like, I'll throw one more in there. The Saints, do they recover from Derek Carr yells at his offensive lineman that much, and he has that kind of just, you fell over the referee and lost us 2 points, and they got the ball back. We don't even talk about that safety because they won by 3 possessions. That's why I can't pick. That's why I can't pick against Baltimore, because something like that happened. And you talked about the punt return.
Well, I didn't finish it. I was about to talk about the punt return.
We're here. We got
the Texans ran that punt return back. They went into halftime tied at 10. And at the time, it was like, okay, the Texans are in this thing. But I still don't think people thought that the Texans had a chance or that they were going to win. But if they go into halftime tied at 10 with Kansas City, there's going to be a whole lot of tight buttholes in my city letting stuff leak out.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so, because
you're giving Mahomes too many chances. Like, that's one thing when you're playing against the rookie.
We'll look at those 2 opportunities. The safety would have crippled most teams. Giving up a punt return touchdown would have motivated some other teams. In both of those games, Baltimore won by combined 42 points.
But neither one of those teams they were playing against had Patrick Mahomes, had Andy Reid.
But if you think about, if you were Kansas City right now, whose offensive, you take Mahomes, will you take Mahomes in a Kansas City current offensive group, or would you take Mahomes and the 49ers offensive group? So even with the safety against 49ers, if you have Mahomes with that offensive group, you would still feel like, okay, we got, but
San Francisco ain't got Andy Reid.
But San Francisco also doesn't have Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes doesn't have San Francisco's weapons either. So I'm not going to think I think the weapons of San Francisco
It's
are
fine. Patrick
better
Mahomes made it to the same
weapons
point in the
to
season that
help
San
you
Francisco
overcome
made it
something like
without
that.
those weapons.
Yeah, but I think the San Francisco I think their weapons I think they're better utilized by Kyle Shanahan than I think Mahomes makes the Kansas City teams look like they have weapons. And I think Kyle Shanahan is coaching San Francisco 49er weapons. That's the difference. So
That
I
is the
think
difference.
if Baltimore can go in there and still shut down Kittle, shut down Debo, shut down Ayuk, and dominate, get 4
You also
interceptions
got to figure
between
Baltimore's got
Darnold
pressure that they
and
haven't had in a long time. You know,
pressure
like
as far as like from the outside,
as far as like, yeah, y'all better win this game.
expectations and
Yeah,
everything
this
else.
is Patrick Mahomes on a not as good team. You're the best team in the league. You haven't made it to the Super Bowl yet with Lamar Jackson. He's going to win the MVP.
True.
You better win this game.
If it was a seasonal expectation that they had to carry that burden for 4 to 5 months, I'd rock with you. But they only have to carry it for like 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. And
Hey,
I think they're going to be in an advantage for
is there
most
a
of it
dude
because
or is there not a dude that was walking around with mom's spaghetti on his shirt? Just saying. Like, you know what I mean? It's just one game, but this is the game.
this is the game. I just don't know. Like I said, 3 phases of the game: special teams, offense, defense. I just think that Kansas City, the Baltimore offense, defense, special teams, I think they marry up better week to
They
week
do. They
than
do.
Kansas City. So
And you
they
know
would
what?
essentially have to like one of those pieces, a third of it would have to just falter
This is the thing. This is the thing.
to
What's your
give the
name?
edge
What's
to
your
me,
name?
Mr. Logical.
Sports is anything but logical.
Absolutely. Nah, not really. Most
At-
logical
sports is-
situations worked out. Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson seems like a crazy thing. But Mike Tyson knocked Buster Douglas out early on. He just didn't take his ass to his corner so the ref could start to count. If you would have walked to the corner, it was 13 seconds. Logically, he wasn't thinking. He just was so hyped up off the fact that this dude is even pushing him as far because Mike didn't train for that. But Buster Douglas was down on the ground on the canvas for 13 seconds. If he walks to his corner, they
Hey, that
win.
ref gave Tyson Fury that fast count or that slow count.
The slow count, but even when
Yeah.
he was knocked out and came back, even in 12 seconds, that's still impressive. But I just feel like I don't want to just give Kansas City credit based off of the fact that they are Kansas City without logically looking at the fact that
No.
they don't go deeper than
Credit
3
because
wide
you picked them
receivers.
to lose the last 2 weeks and they didn't.
True. Okay. Yeah, and I'll admit that I was wrong because logically I was wrong. I made my choices, but you can't keep running Watson, Gray, and Kelsey out there with Rasheed Rice, MVS, Pacheco, and McKinnon. They don't play Sky Moore. I don't think
Well,
Kadarius
he's
Tony
hurt.
sets the field. McCole Hardman got the ball, foamed at the back of the end zone. So the problems that they had in September and October with their supporting cast of their skill position group, they still had 4 days ago.
Right. And they're still here.
Yes, but they didn't give the ball
So
back
if
to
I'm
McCole Hardman. So how many
as
McCole
weird as it
Hardman plays
sounds,
are going to be in the okay? Think about
as
it.
weird
Okay,
as it
real quick,
sounds, Kansas
check it
City's
out.
playing with house money right now.
I don't think they are.
They are. Who's
Think about-
expecting them to win?
Okay, so you had Kelsey throw the ball to Kadarius Toney against the Buffalo game. Kadarius Toney's lined up both sides. How many times have you seen the ball in Kadarius Toney's hands since that game?
I can't even tell you because it was
I think it's
probably
0.
like less than 5. Yeah.
So then you go into your playoff game, and I'm feeding the ball to Kelsey, and he's dropping it. He had 3 drops, 5 catches, 8 targets, 3 drops in his first 8.
Yeah, negative 27, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but he caught the other 5.
You know,
So it wasn't like he didn't catch anything. And some of them was
how many
pre-packed.
passes Theo dropped in his career?
Probably not that many. I don't think he ever played a game when it was like negative Jesus either.
I don't know, but he dropped a lot of passes.
But it's ironic because one of the ones that got cut because he got behind in the preseason. But he Kelsey dropped the passes. He made up for it, but that's because it's Kelsey. But if Gray drops those passes, he's not in the lineup the next week. So I think Kansas City has limited their skill position playmakers. So to the point where it's Baltimore just can lock in on Kelsey, lock in on Gray and Watson. I know Watson's probably a way better runner.
Pacheco only averaged 6 yards a carry last week,
Yeah, but that's cool. I'll give you Pacheco 6
No, I
yards
get
a carry.
that, but what I'm saying though is
I'm not giving you Noah Gray. I'm not giving you Watson. I'm not giving you
outside
Kelsey
of the states of Kansas,
on 37.
Who outside of the states of Kansas, Missouri, maybe Nebraska, thought that the Chiefs would be in the AFC Championship game right now?
I think I didn't because I stuck. Okay, the Miami choice was because I felt as if they were going to lose their first playoff game because of a lack of weapons. The weather affected Tua to the point I don't know how he physically felt. I remember February 2001. I'm stationed at Shepherd. I'm a textual
around
student.
the same time Dre dropped 2001.
So we're there. We're in Shepherd. We're doing a Blues. We're doing a Commander's inspection. We do a Blues inspection in our Blues uniform outside, and then we inspected our rooms. Well, everybody at the basic training threw away their trench coats. I don't know why. Everyone seemed to do it. So you had to be uniform if you're going to be in a flight. So we were out there in the cold, 7 a.m., freezing cold. It sucked. It adversely affected me because it was very cold. But it was a couple of guys from Puerto Rico that needed blankets and hugs when we got back in the building. It was like people wrapping them in blankets, laying on top of them because the way the cold impacted them was different than me. Tua looked like that cold was impacting him. I saw one play. I think it was third down. I don't know if he threw a bad pass or an incomplete pass. But, normally on third down, the quarterback cries for a holding call, illegal contact, something that says, I'm upset that we didn't get this. Man, Tua walks his ass straight to the sideline. Got the coat, sat on the bench. He wanted no parts of it.
Tua and McDaniel had a look on their face the whole game that said, how could you have the audacity to make us play football now?
McDaniel's face was so red. It was like, I don't know how, like I said, the coldest day I can recall working outside was negative 15, maybe negative 20 real field out here in Jersey. But I'm layered up. And we had a truck out there. We had a heater cart. It was breaking. We had to get a new one. But I had gloves on. I'm standing there. I'm layered in the car. It was cold. But yeah, it looked like Tua was just he wasn't ready for that moment.
Yeah, he wasn't.
And then the Buffalo game, Josh Allen kind of did Josh Allen things where he missed a couple plays and we highlight them excessively because, they were always the September Super Bowl champions. So them beating Miami and Buffalo wasn't crazy. Them beating Baltimore and Baltimore thinking that Kansas City is going to beat them.
I
don't think Baltimore thinks that at all.
It's not logical to think that it would happen, but this is sports. It wasn't logical to think that the U.S. hockey team was going to win that game in 1980. It wasn't logical to think that to think that Earl Spence was going to get beat up that way. None of this stuff is logical. Yeah. Things just happen. And I'm not saying that you should expect Kansas City to win. What I'm saying is the same thing that you said when Buffalo's down 14-3, you feel like Josh Allen is going to do everything in his power to get a score right there with Patrick Mahomes. See, think about what you said. You feel like Josh Allen is going. When Patrick Mahomes get the ball, he's going to do something.
But that's the thing. The reason I feel Josh Allen's going to do anything because I think Josh Allen's going to sacrifice his physical health to get you that touchdown. Mahomes is not going to sacrifice his body for that touchdown.
You don't got to. He's good
Josh
enough that he
Allen's
doesn't
going
have to.
3rd and 8. Josh Allen's running into that cover 3 zone, and he's running to all 3 linebackers or 2 linebackers in the corner when it's at the 7-yard mark, and he's going to just propel himself forward to get that first down. I think that about Josh Allen. I don't really think he's going to be able to just win you a bunch of games that way. I just feel like when he gets the ball back down 14-3, he's going to be able to get you a touchdown. With Patrick Mahomes, I think he knows if you get to this spot, I'm going to put the ball on you. I don't think he ever wavers on his arm strength, his accuracy, his understanding of coverage. The issue that I've always had is that
That's
with
why
this
they're
season,
dangerous.
MVS made a couple of catches last week that
You
when
just
he caught
logically
it,
stated
think
why
about it.
Kansas City could win this game.
Okay, when MVS made a couple of catches last week that I know, and I wasn't sitting on the couch with you, but when he made that catch, you thought to yourself, why do you catch the ball like that all year? It was a few plays where I was like, he caught that going to the ground, back shoulder on the sideline, arm in his face, being interfered with. He was dropping wide open passes all year.
Right.
I can't count on that to happen again in 2 days or 3 days. I can count on Lamar dropping back and then seeing this man coverage and scurrying out for 8 yards on 3rd and 7. I can count on that.
And that's why I'm picking Baltimore to win. But to act like Kansas City doesn't have a chance. Like,
I didn't say they didn't have a chance. I just think that Baltimore is just operating consistently. I think Kansas City needs the mistakes. I think Kansas City they need because Stephon Diggs is
but they have
open on that 2nd and 9
in the league, so that could happen.
But they need it to happen. They actually have to have that happen. If it does not happen, it's not the same game. It's the Denver game. Denver, when they lost to Denver 24-9 at Kansas City against Russell Wilson, it's because Russell Wilson went like 9 for 14 for 132 yards or something crazy. Super efficient. No one made the mistake. There was no fumble. There was no turnover. There was no muff fumble. There was no blown coverages. It's just like
Baltimore can't start the first half the way they started the first half against Houston.
If they go into halftime 10-10, I think they'll still be fine.
I think if they go into that half,
it'll be interesting for the NFL, but I
think if they go into halftime at 10 or so, something like that against Kansas City, there's big trouble coming. I'm not saying that means Kansas City is going to win. I'm just saying that I think this is going to be a dogfight that goes down to the final possession.
I would not be surprised if Baltimore won it by double digits.
I wouldn't either.
I don't know if I want to pick it because it's a playoff game, and we've only seen Mahomes in one playoff game lose by double digits, and that was a Super Bowl to Tom Brady. But no one predicted that.
Well, that was because of his offensive line. Yeah,
that was all coupled with the fact that it was something like he ran like 400 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
in that game. But I could see a scenario where Baltimore wins this game 27-13, and it's not close. It's not close the whole game. I can see that scenario playing out. And I'm pretty sure they're the primetime game, and then San Francisco, Detroit is the first one, even though it's early.
Right. So, yeah, but that's where we are. You know, I think it's going to be a good game. I think both games are going to be. I think both games are going to be good. I think both games are going to come down to the wire.
I'm buying ribs tomorrow. Start marinating them on Saturday.
You know what I'm saying? There you go. But ladies and gentlemen, he is Mr. Logical.
Your first live show. Everybody that tuned in, the comments, everybody that sent it to. Shout out to my Uncle Charles. My boy Charles, Dre, JL, my chat group, not me, Real Sports 365. Shout out to Michael Wolfman for making this happen. Shout out to Lindsay for making us do it because she said like a year ago, if you're going to talk on the phone this much, you might as well have a podcast. So like
That's
a week
right.
later we started. So
That's
you know,
right.
shout out to my peoples. Shout
Shout out
my,
to all y'all grandmas.
all your grandmas that's watching it.
You know what I'm saying? I had that Ronnie Lotto on earlier, so you know I was in the throwback that'll make a glance. You know
Shout out to Deion saying it's prime time. You know what I mean? Shout out
Yes,
to
sir.
Atlanta. Listen, Raheem, I'm shooting for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm coming down to Atlanta for a game this year. I'm getting out of town. We live in life. But once again, man, super excited. We're going to do this all the time.
As a wise man once said about what you just said, we don't believe you. You need more people.
I mean, like, listen, we need more people. But we're at a subscriber point. We need more. Share it with your people. Share it with your grandma. Share it with your grandpa. Play it on your TV at work. We don't cuss. I mean, you can play it at work.
Like and subscribe. It's all free. It should have
free.
Scooby-Doo. And guess what? America, we love you.
We love you. Let's go.
Peace. See you Tuesday.